We are being hypnotized by people like this. Newsreaders, politicians, teachers, lecturers. We are in a country and in a world that is being run by unbelievably sick people. The chasm between what we're told is going on and what is really going on is absolutely enormous.
Oh yeah, dude. There's some Nephilim shit.
It's like we all know what's going down, but no one's saying shit what happened to the home of the brave. These motherfuckers, they controlling us now, and no one's talking about how they made us modern-day slaves. And everybody's just walking around, heading the clouds and wanna wake up to a dead in the grave. But then it's too late, we need to be ready to raise up. Welcome to the end of days.
Everybody is slaves, only some are aware that the government releasing poison in the air.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of NDS Chronicles, the show where we read your submitted paranormal testimony. I am David Lee Corbo, a.k.a. The Raven. That is TOPLOBSTA, the father of disinformation. He is currently yelling at his children, so please pardon him. Guys, before we start the show, I want to make a quick announcement. This is going to be a 30-minute preview only. Sometime around the 30-minute mark, we'll be going live exclusively to patreon.com/NephilimDSquad, where you can continue enjoying an ad-free experience, gaining access to the episode before the general public, and even sounding off in the chat like this guy, Wedgiesaurus, who correctly identifies that we are, in fact, to show up on time. Be like Wedgiesaurus and be on patreon.com/NephilimDSquad, where, by the way, you can get these things for free. Sign up for a limited amount of time and enter our 7-day free trial, where you can try to absorb as much content as you possibly can in 7 days and then get out before the billing cycle kicks in. But that is not going to be the case because we have a tremendous amount of backlogged content. All right, guys, we're going to get straight into it because a lot of people have sent us emails. By the way, if you have a paranormal testimony that you'd like to submit and have us read on air, you can submit that to NephilimDSquad@gmail.com. That is NephilimDSquad@gmail.com. Shout out to Jeep I Joe Nathan, who says no Ed today. Unfortunately, he had something come up, and so he had to pull out. I'm sure we're going to see him next week, and so the best we could do for you guys, instead of the Book of Genesis, we're going to do NDS Chronicles today. And I'm going to start with, there we go. There's TOPLOBSTA. Guys, this is what happens when you have people who are parents, who have lives and families, who are trying to make content. Sometimes they burst into the room and they derail you a little bit.
During the intro, it's like playing super loud. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, shit. Like my daughter
I saw you
get
scared. It was hilarious.
Yeah. And she's like, can I go in the pool? And I'm like, absolutely not. It's like 50 degrees outside, you retard.
Dude, so, it's cold as shit out. Yeah. I don't know what the hell. Like, I'm so tired of this. I moved to Florida so that I wouldn't have to suffer the cold. And it is brick as shit.
I got family from New York who deals with horrible weather, and they came here, so they decided it's good weather to go in the pool. I'm like, it's 50 degrees. You're not going in the pool. You're going to get sick.
Yeah,
she's freaking out.
Hypothermia, baby. That's what's going to happen to you in that bad boy. We're going to jump straight into it, though, because the first one that we have is from Dustin, who did not clarify as to whether or not I could soft dox him. So congratulations on the soft doxing.
Go ahead and read this. I have some stuff to take care of. But go ahead. I'm paying attention. This is all fucked. Go ahead.
No, it's all right. It's all right. Okay, let's get straight into this. I actually have to kind of like offset my TV a little bit. Give me 1 second because I can't see shit. There we go. All right. This is from Dustin. Let me make sure I didn't screw my camera up. Who says it's titled Accidental Exorcism, a Self-Reflection. So he goes on to say, in 2019, I moved to a small mountain town in the South Peninsula in the Bay Area called Brisbane. It was quiet, beautiful, and serene. No noise from traffic or otherwise. It was truly a rare experience in the Bay, as you may know. Yeah, it's a really populated area, isn't it? Well, actually, I don't know anything. I thought when I hear Bay Area, I think California, and I don't think that's the same place at all. So I don't know where the hell Brisbane is geographically. Let's see. I moved from the East Bay Hayward to the day the lockdowns were illegally enforced. Yes. There I worked the same job in construction and also helped manage a couple of community gardens back in the East Bay where I had just moved from. Once I moved to Brisbane, I would still visit the farms in Hayward on the weekends to volunteer my time to help clean food, feed the neighborhood, and keep the farm going. This guy's kind of the shit. I did this for another 2 years after I moved from Hayward and had been working there before I moved since 2017. All right. So he says, in 2021, I had managed to save enough money to look for a house to buy, even though most houses I looked at were above my price range or in disrepair. It's so funny because when we tried to, I know I said I wouldn't derail that much because it's a 10-page email, but when we were buying our house, our budget, we wanted to stay at like $250, I think was the max. And our real estate agent just kept showing us houses like 300 plus. And it was very frustrating. They don't care about your budget at all. He says, I soon received a call from my farm colleague that the farm owner was putting it up for sale and giving us first dibs to buy at market value. The farm is situated on a 7,500 square foot lot with an 888 square foot single family home on it. This was a gift from God. As I had, let's capitalize that G real quick. Got to capitalize that G, baby boy. Gift from God, as I had been dreaming about owning that farmhouse ever since I started working there. It really shows how volunteering your time to help others can pay off exponentially. And so in June of 2021, I was able to purchase the house and farm and move in. That's very cool. Nice. I mean, that's especially during that time, June 2021, right? This is right towards the tail end, I would say, of the lockdowns, where things started to kind of like loosen up a little bit and people stopped being so controlled by fear. And once you were able to kind of get your head above water, which probably would have been around June 2021, and look around at what we just went through, the alarm started going off in a lot of people's heads and saying like, hey, it's time to get the f out of Dodge. If you live in a city, if you live in a high populated area, if you live in a blue state, if you live in one that really adhered to the lockdowns, maybe it's time to consider moving. So that is I mean, beautiful timing, really a weight off your shoulders. Okay, at the time, I was a fit, athletic individual with tons of energy. I worked 12-hour days at my job, and then I worked out afterwards. Running 12 miles, mountain biking 60 miles, and lifting weights 3 to 4 times each week. Everything was at the tip top. I had a new girlfriend and thought that life could not be any better. Also, I had not yet found Jesus, although I always believed in a God, but was just generally unsure of the nature thereof. I'm not someone who can read a book and become a believer without some sort of experience or proof that solidifies such a belief. And I would say I'm very much the same way. It's why all that information like pointed me to the Bible, but it wasn't until I had a greasy demon encounter that I actually moved over and kind of galvanized to Jesus Christ. I just want to address real quick. K2 King, very disrespectful, says, David, I thought you were supposed to be losing weight. I am losing weight. This is a baggy t-shirt in an unflattering angle. Please don't fill me with insecurities about my visage. Thank you very much.
If he wasn't losing weight, how could he do such excellent front flips?
That's right. And before we started the show, Top explicitly said that it was that I did a front flip. And I agreed. I'm fine. I'll agree with that. But it's still impressive, okay? It's still impressive. Somebody asked me if I could do the front flip without running, and I almost wanted to lash out and say, F you. How dare you? How dare you? Find me somebody else that could do a front flip, and then maybe you can. I'll have a conversation with them. If you can't front flip, I'm not going to have a conversation with you about front flipping. All right, let's get back into it. Where are we? Boom, boom, boom. A little background leading up to 2017. I have always been a health-conscious person, though I would still indulge. I would always maintain my diet in most respects, as well as herbs and supplements, as I am a firm believer that Western medicine is the devil, and if you want to be healthy and thriving, you don't go to the doctor to become so. Yes, 100%. I just have to say from my own experience that I sometime, I had been married for a while, I had been a father for a while, and I got this notion in my mind that it was time to start like regularly going to the doctor for the first time in my life. And then when I did that, they found a lump in my nut. They removed the lump in my nut. They removed my whole nut. They pulled my wisdom teeth. I got pneumonia. I got a collapsed lung. And I'm like, you know what? And then I haven't been to the doctor anymore since then. But the results of like my spree with the doctors, all I know now is that annually I'm susceptible to shingles. I'm susceptible to shingles and I'm susceptible to pneumonia, which is, fantastic. So it's hard to say what came first, the chicken or the egg. Was it the doctor that fucked me up or was it?
I'm feeling like we read this before.
I don't think so.
I don't know.
Wedgie Saurus says, or Wedgie Saurus, my bad, says herbs equals K2. Yes, when he's talking about doing herbs, he's talking about smoking K2.
Yeah, dude, we read this. We
didn't read this.
I think we have read this.
I don't recognize any of it so far. Well, let's go on a little bit more, and if there's something glaring that pops out, then we'll dismount. But I don't think that we've read this before. Okay, so he says, firm believer that Western medicine is the devil. If you want to be healthy and thriving, you don't go to the doctor to become so. I experienced a severe health situation in 2011 where the medical establishment left me unable to walk, work, or otherwise do anything for a few years. It was a routine ankle arthroscopy. What is that? That was botched and rendered me with the most paralyzing nerve damage I have ever experienced. Wow. That sucks.
Hold on. Yeah, this guy lost 35 pounds, then got it again, lost another 35 pounds. You don't remember this?
No, I don't remember this at all. Are you sure you just didn't read this?
Oh, no, I think we read this. Guys, do you remember? I remember you talking about Brisbane. No one talks about that place. Yeah. Yeah, we've heard this one.
About Brisbane? We've heard this one. All right, Dustin, suck it, Dustin.
Dustin,
sorry
you liar.
You liar. As he sent this, he's like, I sent you this
months ago.
2 months ago. Thank you very much.
Yeah, this is actually probably my fault for not writing that we have read this and we shouldn't read it again. All right, sorry, Dustin. You had your time in the sun.
Your time.
And now we're gonna have to move on to Mama Juju. This is my bad.
Juju. I don't. Okay. Should I start this one off?
Start it off. Starts off with a banger.
I like it. This is how
Wait,
everybody
let's pretend. Let's pretend like we're restarting the episode.
Welcome back to NephilimDSquad.
Yeah, we're back.
We're back.
Forget about all that other shit that just happened with my kids. She's screaming out there. Who cares? Doesn't matter. Me getting up, that never happened.
We wasted the first 15 minutes, but we're typically like 15, 20, 30, 45 minutes late anyway. So just consider this us being later. Okay, this one is from Mama Juju. She says, "Dear..." Thank you. That's very nice, actually.
Very nice of you.
Below, find my submission to the NDS Chronicles. I submitted this to the Dreams and Visions section of the Telegram chat way back in April 10th, 2024.
Wasn't aware that was a that was a section.
I made that. I made that because I figured the schizos who follow the show, all the dangerous retards who follow the show, wanted to talk about, their dreams and their experiences. And so I made a little section for it, and then I never checked in with it. All right, let's see. I copied and pasted it nearly verbatim here to show that my story was not influenced by any stories that subsequently came up on the show.
Got it.
Subsequently. I did it, guys. My story of Voodoo, Mama Juju. Nearly 15 years ago, I was on vacation in Cabarete, Dominican Republic, with my now deceased ex-wife. Not good. Very sorry to hear that.
Sorry.
It's also redundant. Was she your ex-wife first and then died, or did she die and that makes her your ex-wife? I don't know.
Good question.
That's a fair question, right? Late one night, at the all-inclusive bar, I was offered a shot of the resort's housemaid, Mama Juana. What the is Mama Juana? A traditional medicinal and aphrodisiac Dominican rum liquor that is bottled with what appeared to be twigs and mixed with the rum. I later learned that the sticks are a mixture of bark, roots, and herbs. Interesting. After a long day of all-inclusive drinking, I was shit-faced and took a few shots. Sometime after midnight, a short rain fell on the island, and my drunken ass in the chancletas slipped on a wet stone walkway and smashed the back of my head on the ground. Not good.
Hell yeah.
My dad used to say that the easiest people for him to rob were people that were coming out of the bar. And what he would do is he would wrap a pipe in like styrofoam and tape, and he would whack people in the head with it when they came out of the bar. And he said basically his thinking was that there was so much alcohol in their blood that when the blood rushed to their head because of the trauma, basically that meant alcohol was rushing to their brain and would put them out like a light, made them very easy to rob. So what he goes on to say is, I got up immediately and headed back to my room. That's actually very surprising. I think my dad's method was probably not true. I think what was knocking people unconscious was just the pipe. I made it back to my room and I fell asleep around 1:30. Around 3 a.m., not good. I woke up in a cold sweat from the most terrifying and realistic dream I've ever had. The dream. A black cat runs past me, and I felt the need to follow it. I followed it to what I can best describe as a haunted-looking house, a la Bates Motel. I like a motherfucker that uses the word a la. That's good.
This guy uses a lot of nice words.
I do like his words. You use good words. The cat runs through the wrought iron fence gate. Dude, he could have easily just said, like, the gate, but he said the wrought iron. I like this guy's words. And up onto the porch steps and into the front door. I follow the cat inside, and in the middle of this house is a massive tree growing through the floor all the way up and through the ceilings of the floors above. The cat runs up the tree, and I continue to follow it. This is fascinating.
Nice.
The first floor was very tropical feeling, bright and summery. The cat continued up the tree. So did I. The second floor was windy and had is that windy? What would you call it? Is that windy or windy? Here, let's highlight that. Tom, what is
Windy
this?
and had an autumnal feel. I guess, yeah, windy. Had
Autumn? Like a autumnal? This motherfucker is literally asking Grok for synonyms. This is crazy.
He's flexing on us right now.
He is flexing on us. He's like, I'm going to give the... I know they have a hard time reading. I'm going to make it a lot harder. Okay, so the second floor was windy and had an autumnal feel, which is, I guess its root word being autumn. Darker, gray, and colder. The cat continued upwards, and so did I. The third floor was the hallway of my old apartment building that I grew up in. The apartment door at the end of the hallway slams open, and a levitating being begins to float towards me. I distinctively remember freezing up and losing the ability in the dream to run, move, or speak. I was wearing a silvery black cloak. Okay. And as it got halfway to me, it dropped the hood to reveal the face of a black woman with frizzy black afro with white streaks, like a combo of Frankenstein's Bride and Whoopi Goldberg in Ghost. That's horrifying. I subsequently named this entity Voodoo Mama Juju. Did you name it, or was that the impression that you got? That's fascinating that you would attribute a name, literally a 3-part name, Voodoo Mama Juju. Feels like I shouldn't even say that 3 times in a row.
It almost feels racist, huh?
It does feel racist. What is this black lady doing in my house?
Hi, Monica. Right. Thanks. We like making this content too.
Oh,
Please
love
continue.
your thank you very much, Monica. Appreciate it. Johnny Leach says, "Ask ghost stories. Bring back TLC." I'm actually deciding I'm gonna put TLC on a hiatus until we get done all the shit that we have to get done, because I'm simply doing too much right now, and at the risk of getting overwhelmed in the middle of a move, opening a studio, starting a new business venture, launching a new show in Dangerous, and also getting ready for June's Bohemian Grove. TLC has to kind of take the back burner for a while, guys. All right, here we go. Her eyes were glowing yellow with slit reptilian pupils. She raised her left hand and pointed a bony black finger in my direction, which had a very long, sharp, pointy, talon-like fingernail on the end of it. Talons. Interesting. That's very Lilith, right? That's very harpy. After pointing the finger, Voodoo Mama Juju instantaneously covered the remaining distance and was now floating right in my face above me. That's interesting. That's interesting. I had a dream like that once. She opened her mouth and screamed a silent but electric scream. A silent but electric scream. She had dozens of little pointy fang-like teeth, and the breath was cold and smelled like shit. I could feel the scream but not hear it. And it's interesting because he identifies it as an electric scream. So what he can't hear but can feel is electric, right? Which is vibrational, which is, akin to the whole paralysis phenomenon. Okay, so I could feel the scream but not hear it. It grabbed my skull with the talons, which gave me chills and woke me up in a cold sweat. It was the scariest and most realistic nightmare of my adult life. That is pretty horrifying.
Kind of reminds me of this. Let me see if I can share the screen here. It's Pennywise. I don't know if you've seen that It movie, but this one here where he has like 1,000 tiny little teeth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
that movie is besides all of its oddly accurate descriptives or whatever when it comes to these kind of phenomenons, right? Like a lot of what happens in there, you roll over into other people's actual experiences. But it's a great, very rarely do they do this. It number one was great, and the second one was great too. And in fact, the second one might actually be better than the first one.
Well, that's them as adults, right? The second one?
No, so the first one with what was the actor's name who played it?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
He's really great. British actor. I forget his name. Tim Curry. Is it Tim Curry?
Tim Curry.
Tim Curry plays him, and he does a phenomenal job. And there is a two-parter to the original one. It is when they're kids, and then it's when they're adults. But the second one, also a two-parter, it's phenomenal. I thought it was great, man. In fact, I do think that it is markedly better than the first one. Just, by a little bit, by a smidge. I think they got to expand on a lot more of like the creepiness. They had more at their disposal.
It was less goofy, for sure.
Yes.
That guy Skarsgård, the German dude that played Pennywise in the second one, was absolutely terrifying as well.
Yes.
Tim Curry's kind of like funny in a way. I always find him fun.
Yeah.
It was creepy, but yeah. The second one definitely nailed the fear a little bit better.
There was something about Tim Curry's It where he was trying some things out, and there were a lot of really great moments, like when he's like, they all float down here, and then he rips off the kid's arm in the sewers. Like, that was a really creepy moment. But then you're right, there were some moments that came off as like a little goofy, and I think Skarsgård nailed it as far as like just the real creepy factor of it. Dr. Pfister, thank you for the kind words. Says R.I.P. TLC, best show on the web. Rest up, Kang. Rest up. Don't worry, guys. It'll come back, and when it comes back, it might actually be a functioning, better show. With some production value. But for now, I don't have the resources. So let's hop back into this. I was freaking out, felt scared, sober as by then. So this is the night that he goes to sleep absolutely shit-faced. He said he was shit-faced already. And then he said he had several more shots. Then he fell down and hit his head, right? But when he wakes up after this dream, he's sober. And he told his ex about the dream. She saw the fear in my face and listened, but still mocked the idea. Based. Good for her. I went back to sleep and immediately was back at the beginning of the dream all over again. Fuck. The second dream was more of a deja vu style lucid dream. I was able to predict what was going to happen, but could do nothing to change the outcome or the palpable fear, I was experiencing, even though I knew what was coming. Everything happened exactly as it had happened in the first dream, and I once again woke up in a cold sweat as the talons were about to grab my skull. I was almost more freaked out.
It's interesting because on Merkel's latest episode, and also on an episode of on an episode of his show, but it was like a while ago, there was this same phenomenon where the person's like dragged out of their bed, or something is happening to them, and they escape, and then it just replays. Yeah, it just on loop from beginning. So
I've been there before where I thought I woke up from a dream several times, and I do remember that. I don't remember what the dream was specifically, but I remember after thinking that I was awake for like the umpteenth time, I was hit with such a fear of like a sense of dread, because it's like I couldn't get out of it, and then suddenly I was aware that I was in it and couldn't get out of it, and it really fucked me up. That was years ago. Hard RR says, have you seen Tim Curry recently? No, but I imagine he's pretty. Is he dead? He's very old. He probably looks horrifying. All right, let's see what else we got here. I was almost more freaked out as I never recalled having a repetitive dream like that. After regaining some composure and convincing myself that it was just a bad dream, I fell asleep again. Once again, I was back at the beginning of the dream. However, this time it was more of a lucid dream where I was able to control myself more, but still wound up following the cat to the hallway floor again. I began praying in my dream, and this time, Voodoo Mama Juju was not able to touch me with her talons. Fascinating. She appeared frustrated and angry and exploded into a black cloud that flew down the trunk of the tree to the base, where it absorbed through the floor and disappeared. Huh. That's fascinating. I woke up again, and it was morning, and I felt amazing, with no headache, no hangover, and no fear. To this day, I don't know if it was due to being drunk all day, concussed from hitting my head, hallucinogenics from the roots and twigs in the homemade mamajuana, or if this Haitian voodoo mama Juju demon just decided to pay me a visit, or some combination of them all. I just learned this past summer that one of my friends have seen the same entity while on vacation in DR, in their only time having a repetitious dream. I now question whether Voodoo Mama Juju was a dream relegated, or was a demon relegated to prowl about the island of Española, as in some representation of Erzuli Danter. That's interesting. Erzuli Danter, that is the voodoo goddess that this has on his back, P. Diddy. Remember that big tattoo that P. Diddy has on his back, that mural. So this is fascinating. I'm fascinated by a couple of elements. Obviously, the Mama Juju Voodoo, whatever her name is, Voodoo Mama Juju. But also this house that you were in. It sounds sort of like a Franken house, right? You have this big tree in the middle of this, what is essentially, he's describing it as like a mansion. Not a mansion, but it's a 3-story home, so it's got to be pretty big. And each floor is discernibly different from the last. How did it start off? I want to go back and see real quick. I followed the cat inside. In the middle of the house is a massive tree. The first floor was very tropical, bright and summery. The second one was much more like an autumn feel. It was dark and gray and colder. And the third one was the hallway of his old apartment building that he grew up in. That's fascinating. Man, I don't know what to make of that.
She like took him on an adventure. The ghost of Christmas past, you know. It's very strange.
Yeah, kind of, right? I mean, so I've had a dream before where, and I've told this story. I'll tell it very quickly again. But when I was getting ready to move to Las Vegas from New Jersey, I had this cryptic dream. My cousin lived in Vegas. That's who I was going to move in with. He was in the dream, and he's beckoning me like, "Hey, it's time to go, dude." And I'm saying, "I got one more thing to take care of before we go." And I'm in a Frankenstein house that's made up of like all the places that I've lived in the past. And for whatever reason, I'm going around and pissing on all of these places. And he's like, "Come on, we got to go." And I'm like, "Hold on, dude, got to piss." Long story short, I had actually pulled my out in real life and then pissed onto my own chest and face in real life. And I woke up covered in piss and feeling just this odd sense of like remorse, like feeling horrible, feeling such a sense of shame, actually, is what it was, disproportionately, because now I look back and I tell it as like a joke, but at the time I woke up and I felt such shame. So that like kind of house that's made up of different elements, and then having one of those elements being the apartment that you grew up in, that's pretty fascinating. I don't know what to make of that, but it feels like she was trapping you in something that is maybe more significant than it looks on the surface. You know what I mean?
A karmic loop, right? Is a man.
Yeah.
What's that story you always talk about where it's like this reincarnation karmic loop?
Oh yeah, the guy who told us the story that basically said that God didn't create the karmic system, that there actually is a karmic system, and it was created by angels, and he didn't tell us whether or not it was fallen or angels that are still in the grace of God, but that because they created it, it was an imperfect system. If God created it, it would have been perfect, and because of that, it's all backed up and fucked up. And he even went off to say that there's going to come a time where like the end does come about, and it's when the last soul enters. Right now, there's a disproportionate like flesh to soul ratio, not enough souls to fill the flesh. So, gives credit to the NPC situation. But I don't know what to make of that. I know that he touches on the idea that she was unique to that island potentially. And that goes into your point that you bring up a lot, which is like these things are relegated to localities. They're not omnipresent. They're not omnipotent. They are locked into physical locations, right? Powers and principalities over nations, over kingdoms. And it seems like Mama Juju, whatever her name is stuck on that island because his friend goes there and has... Did he say she saw the same entity? Hold on. I learned this past summer that one of my friends has seen the same entity. Wow. While on vacation in the DR. Wow. And it is their only time having a repetitious dream. This is her MO. This is this bitch's MO.
That's what she does. That's
what she do.
I mean, I wonder if it's a Haitian entity or a Dominican entity. Probably Haitian because they share the same island, right?
They're both very insufferable. You know what's funny? Among Hispanic people, you kind of find out like generally who the most, like Asians are very racist against Asians, yada yada. Dominicans are like not other Spanish people's favorite Spanish person, or at least that doesn't seem to be the way with my family. My family is made up of Peruvians, Uruguayans, and Hondurans, and they all agree Dominicans, which I think is very funny.
Yeah.
So I don't sound. Let me see here. Atomic Shaman Sweat Lodge says sounds like their own La Llorona. I can't even pronounce that bitch's
La
name.
Llorona.
Yeah,
Like a crying lady. Yeah.
I watched the movies about her. Very good movies.
It might be. I mean, if I don't have any more Dominican friends because I don't talk to those people. But if I did, I'd ask them about this entity, and I'm sure that it's something that would come up with people on their island. So, but
That's
yeah,
interesting.
absolutely.
Yeah. Let's see if we type that in real quick to Google and see if we get any results. Voodoo Mama Juju. Okay, let's try that.
Yeah, what he just made up. I don't think you're going to find anything.
I don't know, because sometimes it's like, did you make that up or did you get that in your mind? Like, is that your own idea or was that an impression? Okay, well, guess what? Google just finished my search results before I could. It says Voodoo Mama Juju can refer to a few things, including a song by Toast, a character from The Office, a cat named Voodoo Mama Juju at the Des Moines County Humane Society, and a general term for magic, sorcery, power, energy, artifacts. Okay, there is a song by Toast, whatever, on Spotify called Voodoo Mama Juju. Maybe interesting. Let's see. In the context of magic and folklore, voodoo can, yeah, we know that. Instagram, there is somebody named Voodoo Mama Boo Boo. Who also uses the name Voodoo Mama Juju. Yeah, I'm not seeing much on it. Mama Juju explaining her voodoo. Okay, that literally comes from Dunder Mifflin. I mean, from The Office. So this might have just been in this guy's mind.
This guy's just watching The Office.
Just watching The Office, and he was like, yeah, I'll just name it that. Fascinating. I don't know, man. But I'm glad it seems to have been exclusively to that island. You're not dealing with that anymore. As in some representation of Urzuli Danter, maybe like an aspect of the same entity or something like that. Very fascinating. Very fascinating.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.
Wouldn't be surprised if this is a locality that you're going to encounter like that. My friend who came in contact with the Jaguar woman, because she was in some South American country, but like it's very common to see this person here when you're on this type of drug or herb or root. So yeah, you just did that. You thinned the veil and you got a little visit from some voodoo lady. Surprise! Don't do that.
But you figured out how to get out of it, right? Because the only way he got out of the loop was praying. He didn't specify whether or not he invoked the name of Jesus Christ. But it's still fascinating that prayer. Which I imagine is if it's not to Jesus Christ, then he's probably aiming it at God the Father. But it worked and it stopped him. And that she seemed pissed off. And then what did she do? She basically turned into black mist. Fascinating. That goes back to that entity that I saw. I think the black mist thing is like a form they can take. And it slinks down through the floors, down into the tree, and then into the ground. So the roots of the tree. And that to me strikes me as symbolic, right? Where does she retreat? She retreats into the roots. She has her talons, her metaphorical talons in that place. She is rooted in that place. And wherever you saw her you saw her on a field that she controls, right? Because she was able to make one of the floors something about your childhood. I wonder if this guy experienced any trauma when he was a child living in that apartment, or just the idea that she would have access to that to pull that up seems like maybe she could if you were traumatized there, and then she could throw that in your face. There is a lot of fascinating things about this, and a lot of it is symbolic, I think. But that retreating into the floor, right? She appeared frustrated and angry and exploded into a black cloud that flew down the trunk of the tree to the base, where it absorbed through the floor and disappeared. To me, like this notion of her being rooted there, right? Like she is planted and grown there on this island in the DR.
It attributes to some Fey lore as well, which, I mean, is not necessarily lore. Like, why would that characteristic only be attributed to like the Norse people or people in the eastern region? Is like, no, if demons behave this way, there's plenty of trees everywhere. They probably do the same shit even in the DR. Well, not in Haiti because they have no trees because they cut them down. Retards.
Well, there's definitely something about trees and the symbolic spiritual like meaning of a tree. Obviously, you have the tree of knowledge of good and evil. You have the tree of life, and it just seems that over and over again within Norse mythology, there is like the realms that are stacked on top of one another. They're all bridged together by a tree, a gigantic tree. So I mean, there's a lot in there to unpack. I wish I was smarter, but don't go to the DR, huh? Stay away from that place. Stop vacationing in those hellholes. Why do
Stop
people go there?
vacationing, period.
Yeah. I mean, just take some time off and
Stop experiencing culture, people.
stop experiencing culture. Don't get me started. Okay, that was Mama Juju. I guess we're gonna go on to Ben now. January 22nd.
Yeah, let's read Ben.
All right,
He says, "Hey guys, my name is Ben." So he's okay with being doxxed.
Hey Ben.
I'm a
Soft dox.
Christian in my early 20s now. I've been married for a little over a year. Never done any drugs. Haven't smoked peppermint. I've drank alcohol sparingly.
Oh, and he
but
says
never
I
had-
have smoked peppermint. Who the f- is smoking
I
peppermint?
have smoked peppermint. I don't know what that even means.
That's strange.
Is peppermint a drug? I suppose it is, right?
I would never
It's a root.
think to smoke it. That's wild.
It's a plant. Yeah, I don't. What's wrong with these people? I've drank alcohol sparingly, but never had anything happen while drinking. I'm gonna do my best to remember and list all the things that have gone on in my life.
Let's go. It's only 6 pages, so
Yeah, so yeah, I guess he's 20, so it's a couple of things. My first experiences started when I was about 4. We were living in LaGrange, Oregon, at a campground. We lived in a camper at the time on account of my dad's job. One day I was playing outside and I felt a draw to the woods, which were fenced off with barbed wire. Regardless, I crawled through the wire and walked into the woods. I didn't get very far before I came across a reptile-like creature that looked almost like a crocodile, but more dragon-like. Being 4 years old, I was terrified. I ran all the way back to the camper through the thorns and the barbed wire. It may have been following me. I don't know for sure because I didn't look back. When I got back, I was cut up pretty bad and my coat was torn up. I'm still scared of thorns and barbed wires to this day. My parents convinced me I probably just saw a log and said it was my imagination. Shortly after this, I started having nightmares of what I called the night dog.
the night dog, dude. This dog, my son was having dreams about a dog with glowing eyes that was communicating with him. And I don't know how.
What was it saying?
I don't remember, but I just told him like, hey, that thing is not, because he kind of took it as like it was like, oh, it's kind of cool. And then I'm like, no, rebuke it, dude. Call on Jesus Christ. And it stopped. It never happened again. But he had a couple of consecutive ones before I was like, call on Jesus Christ. Do not talk to that dog.
Yeah. Do not talk to that dog.
Do not talk to that dog.
All right. These nightmares would torment me for the next 4 years until we would eventually move into a house. Do you remember that? It's like a serial murderer that was like talking to his dog. They made like a claymation cartoon about it.
No, that doesn't ring a bell at all.
It's very weird. I forget the name of it, but it was a guy that he was a serial murderer, or what would you call that? A mass murderer. And he was talking. Was it Son of Sam? I don't remember. He was talking to his dog, and MTV had a weird claymation, like animated series about him and this dog, but it was never
That's
really
fucking weird.
Yeah. It always rubbed me the wrong way. It made me feel like I wanted to vomit. Son of Sam, but the cartoon was something else. Now I gotta find out what that
Son
was.
of Sam cartoon on MTV. You end up finding like the Hellhound thing comes up a lot. And obviously it comes up in like the Dogman kind of stories and things like that. But it also comes out like one of my favorite stories that was ever on the confessionals was about a vampire. And it was such an excellent story. It actually rarely gets brought up in the grand scheme of things whenever Tony's trying to like connect dots. And I'm like, it was such a banger story. But long story short, some kid and his siblings that ranged from like 4 to 11 years old came across a glass coffin in the mountains. And inside of it was a man. Next thing you know, the man is outside of the coffin and he's just standing there looking at him. And one of the things that he had was a dog with him. And it was like a big black dog with glowing eyes. And it was terrifying.
This was the show. Moral Oral. Yeah. It's very bizarre. I don't remember exactly what it was about, but look at what the f is going on here. But he would talk to his dog. Very strange. I'm trying to find. They don't even have his dog depicted here. But yeah, he's like sort of like an innocent kid, but like weird shit would happen to him. See this picture?
But he's a murderer in real life?
No. But for some reason it was based off of the idea that some guy was talking to his dog, or his dog was communicating with him, and he was like murdering people. Son of Sam.
That's wild.
Very strange.
Strange. That dog thing though comes up a lot. Hugely symbolic, right? And then of course when it comes to Hecate or Lilith, you get this like white wolf situation that pops up a lot. But the dogs, I get that. Even on Skinwalker Ranch, they have the concept of the bulletproof wolf, which is like, it's like a dire wolf. It's a magnificently huge wolf that is impervious to bullets. And this is something that they constantly have to deal with on Skinwalker Ranch. Here we go. Wedgie Saurus gave us something from Grok, who has been known to lie, but Grok says, the show centers on Oral Puppington, an 11-year-old boy in a fictional town of Morrilton, Statesville, a stand-in for the Bible Belt. Oral's a naive, devout Christian who takes the adults' lessons, often from his dysfunctional family or the local church, too literally, leading to disastrous, darkly comedic circumstances. Also talks to his dog. That's weird. Yeah, I don't know what that is.
It was definitely like it's a slight on Christianity, and this was at the time when MTV was kind of like counterculture. So
yeah.
You had like TRL and they were doing their summer shit, and MTV was like a big
Road
deal.
Rules.
Yeah, and then they did this show, and it had that bent to it where it's kind of like pushing against Christianity. That was cool at the time, but it delved into this crazy territory. So the dog's name was Bartholomew. Whatever. We're getting very distracted here.
Well, here, I just want to highlight this. Sunny sometimes says, I knew a chick on. She always swore a black dog was following her. She's probably right. Right. Shout out Dr. Jerry Marzinski. All right.
So these nightmares would torment him for the next 4 years. He would roll off the bed and wake up. I would look up to the cubby underneath the nightstand and see 2 glowing eyes. They would slowly approach, revealing a very muscular, very black bulldog. Once I saw it, it would charge me. But before it would get to me, I'd be lifted off the floor and placed back onto the bed. On top of the covers. So we didn't go to church at the time, and I had very little knowledge of God and his angels, but somehow I knew that it was an angel that would save me. Looking back, I'm convinced that something was attempting to possess me. I told my parents at the time that they gave me a bottle of air freshener that they had labeled as night dog spray. Hilarious. Nice gesture, but it never worked. While living in the camper, we mainly lived in Montana, Arizona, and Ohio. So that's where that's actually very funny. It's like giving him some secret sauce, see if it'll work for him.
It's like, what's that movie, Space Jams?
Yeah. After moving into a house, the night dog went away, but was replaced by a multitude of other strange anomalies. First, I started sleepwalking. I would leave the house and return with dirty feet. It got so bad that my parents discussed putting a bell or an extra lock on the door to keep me inside.
Wow. I wonder how old he is, because, you know, both you and I are parents, and it's like, man, if I knew my kid was like leaving the house, I'd be freaked out if my kid was leaving the house at night. That wouldn't happen more than once. I would like nail the door shut at night.
Yeah, he would get out here. If my kid walked out there, it's like, and in the middle of the night,
coyote.
Yeah, probably something. So after moving into the night dog house, it went away. But it was replaced by a multitude of other strange anomalies. Sorry, my bad. We're at the bottom part here. So about this time, I started hearing voices in the winds and in the wind and trees. I could hear that it was a discernible language, but I couldn't understand it. I told my dad about it, and he told me the Indians believed they could hear the trees and that the band Rush had a song about it. Ultimately, he told me it was probably my imagination and to dismiss it, so I started ignoring the voices and moved on. I was 8 or 9 at the time.
That came up recently. I don't know if it might have been an episode of the Confessionals or something that I was listening to, but the idea was like you could hear this whispering constantly in an indiscernible language, and the second you tried to lock onto it, it would become too faint to hear anymore. And then only when you were like engaged in monotony of just your everyday routine would you realize like, wait, what the f is that noise? And then as soon as you turn to listen to it, it just fades away. And that is something that a lot of people would describe. That's fascinating. Voices and wind in the trees.
We're actually 47 minutes in, David. Are we going to?
Yes, guys. We are at the 49-minute mark. We gave you an extra 19 minutes. Head on over to patreon.com/NephilimDSquad. You can continue watching along, chiming in on the chat, enjoying an ad-free viewing experience, and you can do it for free. Just sign up for the 7-day free trial and try to absorb as much as you can before the billing cycle kicks in. I dare you, but you're not going to be able to because we got a lot of backlog content, guys. So otherwise, we will catch you guys on the flip side. Patreon.com/NephilimDSquad. All right. Peace out, guys. Let's continue this. What else does Ben have to say?
Can you, just go ahead and start reading that. I'm going to kick these people out.
Okay, so he was about 8 or 9 when that happened. Started ignoring the voices and moved on. All right, so he says, sometime after I turned 10, I started seeing shadow people. They would walk by the window, down the hall. Sometimes they would follow me, and I could feel their presence. It was like someone leaning over you, scrutinizing. Sometimes they'd knock something off a shelf or pull a towel down. I didn't think much about it, and I just brushed it off as my imagination. But then they would attack or chase me in my sleep. Sometimes they would walk into me when I was awake, and I'd start shaking and getting really upset. This is around 10, he said. After this happened a few times, I told my parents, and they thought it was my imagination and told me it was so. I believed them, and after a few years, they left me alone. Until here, a few months ago, I saw them for a couple of weeks accompanied by voices and depression. I'll include that account below. That's interesting because at 10 years old, my son is 9, and I listen to what he says. When he tells me shit like that, I go, all right, this is significant. It's not just the imaginations of a child. And I don't like feed into it and you know anything like that, but I do make a mental note of it. And if I feel as though there is something threatening there, I always tell him to call on the name of Jesus Christ. So I couldn't imagine my son being 10 and telling me that shadow people sometimes walk into him while he's awake and he'll start shaking and getting really upset. I'd be like, there's a real problem
like
here.
Walk into you, bump into you, or walk into you?
I don't know. It's a good question. Are they phasing into your body, or are they just knocking into you?
All right, David, go ahead and take it from here. This is a very disjointed episode for me, but I will be right back. Go ahead.
Sure. Okay, so
that's not you. There we go.
Here I am.
You're good.
Okay, so at one point while this was going on, I had a dream of trees falling down and my siblings and I playing on them. I told my family that this dream, I told my family about this dream, and about a week later, a storm came and tore up the trees at our favorite park. During this storm, we were sleeping in the living room with my dad. I wasn't sleeping very well at all, and at one point, I looked out the window and saw the Hat Man standing in the window. That guy, by the way, whatever's going on with the Hat Man, is like, I always get this notion that it's important to figure out who he is. We've even done an episode with, I forget what her name was. It might have been just my episode on the Ravens Watch, almost like 2 years ago now. Heidi, not Heidi Love, it's a different Heidi. And she came on to talk about who the Hat Man was. And her entire summation of it was like, he's basically Satan, the devil. And I'm like, that's too vague for my liking. Because Satan is a term, and devil is also like a term. It's like, you're saying that the Hat Man is the adversary? What are you talking about? Like the one from the garden? Or what are we saying here? And so I never found that answer to be very satisfactory. Whoever that character is, though, he's a little bit more, maybe a little bit more important. That's just the feeling that I get. a little bit more important than we give credence to. Okay, so where are we at here? He had red eyes and a trench coat, and I was so scared that I couldn't scream or move, so I just closed my eyes. The next day, we went to the park and played on the trees, just like in my dream. So, two things I want to say about that. One is, of course, the couldn't scream or move. He's experiencing sleep paralysis. The red eyes, the trench coat, all very classic Hat Man, renditions, or not renditions, but experiences. And it's worth noting here that schizophrenia, which I do not believe is a medical condition, it's a spiritual disposition. People that are plagued by it will often have the ability of like clairvoyance or future prediction, but in a very not a massive way, right? Something like that is small and not monotonous, but insignificant, right? They'll be able to predict something that's going to take place in the very near future, and it's relatively insignificant, but it will come to pass. And so, yeah, trees falling over and playing on them at the park is relatively insignificant, but there it is. It does come to pass. I'm not saying that homeboy's schizophrenic, but then again, I don't believe anybody actually is. Later that winter, after I woke up, a voice told me Aunt Kathy was coming over. I told everyone at breakfast what I heard, and nobody believed me. Later on that day, she showed up with surprise Christmas presents. My parents didn't even know she was coming. Boom, there it is again. By the way, a voice told him that. So, man, talk about me rolling out the red carpet for that next paragraph. That is the same thing. Schizophrenics will have a voice tell them about a pretty insignificant moment that's about to come to pass, but then it does come to pass. And so there we go, right after I said that. During puberty, I had developed some severe allergies to certain fruits, nuts, grains, and eggs. I almost died eating cherries once when our van broke down on the way to the hospital. Damn. So, Top, I can't see you because I'm reading this, but I imagine you're back now. What you missed is that this kid is having dreams that are like prophetic a little bit. And it's like really simple shit. It's like I had a dream I was going to play on a downed tree with my sister at the park. And then all of a sudden, like a week later, a storm comes and he goes to sleep. He has a Hat Man experience. The next day, he goes to the park and plays on trees that have been down from the storm. And I said that in schizophrenia, these people will have like this prophetic ability, but it's like prophecy that is rather insignificant and it's in the immediate future. And then like it does come to pass. And then the very next thing that I read here says, later that winter, after I woke up, a voice told me that my aunt was going to show up. And I told my parents, they didn't believe me. Later on that day, my aunt showed up. Mm-hmm. So verbatim, what I had just said, there's that precognition aspect to schizophrenia. And then it shows itself right in the next paragraph there. So,
so the Hat Man experience, something with red eyes, very common. It's weird.
He can't move. He's paralyzed.
Yeah, it's weird. Sometimes you see it with red eyes, and no hat, and sometimes people just see the red eyes with the hat.
Yeah. I was talking a little bit about that because sometimes I feel like the identity of the Hat Man is actually more important than we might imagine. It's just a feeling that I get. And I had somebody on my show once on the Ravens Watch come on. Her name was Heidi. I forget what her last name was, but she came on and basically claimed to know the identity of the Hat Man. And more or less what she said was like the Hat Man is Satan, is the devil. And I'm just like, well, now where I'm sitting, like Satan is the adversary, and the devil, a devil is a terminology I think associated with fallen angels, right? Like devils, demons, and unclean spirit. I think devils are actually like these motherfuckers, the fallen. And so that to me is just not a satisfactory answer. And it's interesting because if you look in like a lot of Hollywood films, they will depict the devil, if he's not like a horned dude with a pitchfork, he is a well-dressed older man, oftentimes like with a hat like that, right? So I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. I think there's still, the jury is still out on the Hat Man and what he really is. And I don't know. It's just, so what you're saying is like when he's got no hat and he's got red eye, I would think that's more to just like a shadow person. Probably different tiers to that too, right? Like people see shadows all the time, but to see a shadow that's denser than other shadows is one thing. Then to see a shadow that's denser than other shadows but has red eyes is another thing. And I think it's almost like the more fleshed out they are, the more severe they are in their consequences, whatever that means.
Yeah. All right.
Here, you want to take it off from here?
Yeah. So when I turned 15, I got a job at a hobby shop and started working for people on the side building model train layouts. Very strange job. One man I worked for was a kind of we called him Chester, and I'm pretty sure he had something going on with a demon. He'd get violently upset when I questioned him on the weird things he did. He was constantly trying to undermine my parents, and at one point, he was staring at me while caressing a knife in his hand. He also locked us in his office once when we were there. We were the only ones there, and he insisted that I eat his food and never go upstairs. Wow, it's very strange.
This is your boss?
Yeah. Anyway, I eventually quit, and he started stalking my house.
Whoa, that's fucking weird,
Well, what were you wearing, Ben?
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's work attire, Ben. You show up to work in a professional attire, not booty shorts. So
I know. He kept wearing his tank top that would cut off at the belly.
Crop top, tank top. You can't show up double cheeked up to work, dude. You can't do that. That's the problem.
Anyway, so while I was dealing with this, I went on a trip to Scranton, Pennsylvania to stay with a friend.
To watch The Office or to go
to watch The Office, which is where you get Mama Juju from.
There you go.
My friend lived in Lake Ariel, and he had seen a Bigfoot several times. He purposely purchased a potato of a camera to get a picture of him so his pictures would fit in with everyone else's. His house had a dirt room in his basement that apparently was part of the Underground Railroad. Long story short, when I got back, I was sick with the fever, nauseated, my joints would lock up and have spasms. I was taken to the ER where the doctors...
Oh my God!
Where the doctors told me I had Lyme disease, even though the test came back negative because we had caught it early enough. That was somewhat traumatizing because I thought that my life was over and I was still dealing with Chester.
And Lester.
So you went to your friend's house that had seen a Bigfoot several times. And then when you got back, you were sick with a fever and they thought it was Lyme disease.
As soon as he said my joints would lock up, I was like, that sounds like they're going to say, and then boom, the very next line is the ER doctors told me I had Lyme disease, which, just to fill the audience in, Top and I spend a fair bit of time speculating as to what the Lyme disease actually is. It's a blanket diagnosis that covers a litany of symptoms, and its cure just simply doesn't exist. So in other words, what are your symptoms to have Lyme disease? Well, pretty much anything and everything.
Yeah.
And how do they cure it? Well, they don't. It's just like a maintenance thing for the rest of your life, allegedly. And there's a big correlation between Lyme disease and like these spiritual encounters.
The JFK release confirmed that Lyme disease was a government-created disease. I don't know. I haven't read that.
Is that true? Please let that be true. That is fun.
I'm pretty sure that was already confirmed, that it comes from Lyme, New York. It was an experimentation. It was a disease released intentionally or unintentionally. We're not sure. So Mike Benz is reporting that. Yeah, it was released, and the main carriers of it are ticks, which are basically useless animals, only for spreading disease. Yeah. Just picked one off my leg the other day. It's like
really?
A Lone
I was going to
Star.
ask you if there's a lot of ticks on your property because you have that really densely wooded area.
There can be. It depends on the year. So the first year we moved here, there was quite a bit. The next year there were no ticks. The year after that, there was now this year I got a tick. I don't know. It's fairly random. You could just be walking by, and if it feels like jumping on you, it'll get you.
I hear people say like if you have a lot of birds, you have a lot of chickens. They'll eat ticks and shit. So,
well, I raised a bunch of guineas, which are specifically to eat ticks. And the first day that I put them in the coop with the rest of the birds, they just left. Yeah, I don't know where they went. They ran away, and they got literally
really?
one day. Yeah, and I raised them for 2 months or something until they're ready.
Was that the ones that were on the porch?
Probably. I don't know. I that's where I raise all my birds. I raise them on
like an
the
incubator
porch
type of deal out there.
Yeah. But these were guineas. They have a certain pattern. They're real ugly birds, noisy birds. But they're supposed to eat ticks, and these guys just bounced. They were like, "Thanks," and then they got
sucks, man. Thanks for raising me. Peace out.
and then they get their head off by whatever. And like, perfect.
Yeah.
All right. So soon after this, I met our neighbor Emma Cochran. She claimed she was an energy healer. I didn't believe her until she healed a bad cut my mother had, and she healed it overnight. Told my mom, without ever seeing her, that my baby sister needed to see a doctor immediately because she had a double ear infection, which ended up being true. She also predicted the death of our neighbor's dog, and my mom was pregnant. And my mom was pregnant before my mom even took a test.
Oh, so she predicted that or she told your mom that she was pregnant before she ever took a test.
Yeah. But most impressively, she cured me of all my seasonal and food allergies, as I mentioned before, and of my recently diagnosed Lyme disease. Interesting.
Well,
I wonder.
There goes that, right? It's a spiritual disposition.
I also wonder if there's any strings that come attached with that. So,
Right.
Emma Cochran. So he says, I started working for her doing lawn work, and she would feed me some of the best food I've ever had. She told me it tasted so good because it was made with love. She explained to me that everything is energy, solids, liquids, gas, etc. It's all energy that vibrates at different frequencies. For example, she told me our thoughts and prayers are high, our bodies medium, and our houses and furniture were low vibrations. She told me that you can learn to tune into these frequencies and manipulate them, especially thoughts, prayers, and your body. It's interesting because in the telepathy tapes, they do cover this in the talk tapes, which is after season 1. The kids say that their physical bodies are vibrating at a different frequency than their lower body, than their like their conscious, and that's why. Yeah, so they're not like meeting, so that's why their bodies, they're not in control of their bodies.
That's why you said they'll use like the tuning fork to try to somehow elevate, so they'll meet somewhere.
Yeah, they say that they were using the tuning fork as like if I wanted to find what key someone, let's say a band was playing, and I just have my guitar and I'm gonna try to play with them. I would listen to what they're doing, and then I might play a note, and I would see where I fall according to the key that they're playing in, and then I could figure out like, oh, okay, maybe I'm playing in too low of a key, and then I play another note, and that sounds like it. How does this correspond with the rest of the notes? And that's kind of what they're talking about.
Interesting.
Just it's called relative pitch. Anyway, eventually, she convinced my mom that she could heal me, and so she started treating me. I would go to her house and lay on a massage table. Oh boy, this guy's getting molested by everybody. Yeah. She had diagrams of chakras and crystals and things like that.
Oh boy.
She explained to me that the structure of the rocks had different properties and how they can help or hurt depending on the rock. Our sessions would start with her consulting my spirit or guardian angel. She'd ask them questions about me and found out things I had never told anyone.
Sounds like I don't know if we really all have a guardian angel. That's something that we should explore on this show. I think that's much more like Catholicism. I think adheres to that sort of an ideology. It's not something that I've really investigated very much, but I also know that we have familiar spirits, and those are often the ones who are sharing information about us. Yeah.
It's a good question. I think we could ask Ed a little bit more about that, because we were just covering angels and angelic civilizations on our show with him, but maybe next week. All right. Then she would put me in a trance with a bronze bowl that she would make a soft ringing with. I'd stay awake, but I couldn't speak or move. Interesting. So she put him in a state of like paralysis with a vibration from a bronze bowl. I could only blink. She knew what I was thinking. The first time she put me in a trance, I was praying that it wouldn't turn sexual or weird, and she told me that she knew what I was thinking and that I was safe.
Please don't turn me off. Please don't turn me off.
Yeah, I know. I wonder what this lady looked like. It was so relaxing and peaceful. After putting me in a trance, she would align my energy or something like that, basically connect and balance everything. Then she would take a Q-tip and wet it with my saliva. Then she would put it in my navel. Okay. When she would do this, I could feel a tingling sensation from the back of my head to my tailbone, all the way down to my spine. All the way down my spine. Then she would begin working on me, which usually involves her speaking to different entities, including my familiar spirit
Okay. Well,
and
there you
figure
go.
out what was wrong.
Interesting. Isn't it kind of alarming a little bit to think that if that is true, then we have these companion spirits that are right here with us even right now as we're doing this show and have been since birth.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Also, try to understand the nature of these entities is something that is a little bit alarming, right? Like, because challenging, alarming, not quite sure where to put these guys.
Yeah.
All right.
Here we go. Xerox, though, I think he's right. Familiar spirits will pretend to be your deceased relatives, right? So when people are talking, they're engaging in like ancestor worship. They're not really engaging with their ancestors. They're engaging with things that are masquerading as them.
Right. One time she was trying to work on me and she kept getting stopped. So I asked if there was someone else with us. And for the first time, the lights on the room dimmed, which was new to our routine. And she got a yes. She asked if it was malevolent or benevolent, and it told her it was benevolent, sure, and that it was my guardian angel. He told her that I needed to rest that day. She spoke to him for a few more minutes after that, and that the angel was constantly having to protect me, and I was a handful. She later told me that he was very powerful and was always around. After a few months, she declared me allergy-free and healthy. So we went and had blood work done and everything was normal. Our doctor wanted to know how it happened, but we didn't tell him because it was kind of an odd experience all the way around. So he later put on my notes that they had come and gone due to the change in hormones. She died from liver cancer soon after healing me. I never got to say goodbye. She was diagnosed and was dead 2 weeks later.
What?
Wow. That's
Dude, that's crazy. This is man, I have such a mixed like bag when it comes to this sort of information. Like, I wouldn't engage in it, but I look at it and I'm like, these things they seem to exist in one way, shape, or form. I don't know. I see what the Bible says about engaging with them. Like, what does it say? Does it say that it's wrong to do that? It says to test the spirits, right? I mean, man, 2 weeks later, she's dead.
after being diagnosed. Crazy. Yeah. That's
liver cancer. That's fast as shit.
Yeah. It's kind of alarming. But
yeah.
All right. So he says, after this, I stopped dealing with shadow people, nightmares, voices, and really anything out of the ordinary. I became an ass of a person and destroyed my relationship with my mom. At one point, I hopped a freight train, started stealing, and was constantly running away. I became addicted to porn and was completely disgusted with myself. I considered suicide a few times, and I was just falling off the deep end.
Okay, so right
There's
here
the
where you
price.
say, after this, I stopped dealing with shadow people, nightmares, and voices, and really anything out of the ordinary. And then you end that with, I was addicted to porn and committed suicide. It's like, you didn't stop dealing with the voices. You just became convinced they were your own.
Yeah.
Because I maintain that anybody that commits suicide or is considering committing suicide is being plagued by voices that are masquerading as their own thoughts, but are not actually them.
It's like you got the healing, but that opened you up to a whole new plethora of issues.
Yeah.
Man,
that's crazy.
What a crazy trick to be played, right? It's almost like a problem reaction solution, right?
Yes, yeah. It lulls you into a false sense of security. You know, you think that you're done with this, and in reality, because I just don't know how you don't draw that correlation, right? It's not your own thought. Well, I guess that would have to be, you'd have to know, or at least have identified that, like, I don't think these thoughts are mine. They're like intrusive, and they don't come about organically through, you know, a discernible thought process. They just appear in my head, and they tell me that I ain't shit, and that nobody loves me, and that I'll never be anything, and that I'm not good enough, and that I'm a da 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 da. And the next thing you know, you identify with that voice. You think that's your own thoughts. It's not. It's something preying on you.
Not only that, but he's it seemed like he's been like given this weird ailment, this weird spiritual ailment that they can't diagnose, and then immediately given the cure to it. It's like, well, here's the cure. A couple months with this lady, she's gonna put a Q-tip in your belly button, and yeah, just be open to it. And yeah, man, does it work? Certainly does. But was this lady's intentions, were her intentions malicious? I don't know, but was he not properly protected when she was doing this kind of stuff?
It's like getting it's like scraping your knee and it's like bleeding really bad. And then this lady comes over and puts a Band-Aid on it, but you don't realize that now the Band-Aid gave you ass cancer.
Yeah.
And you don't draw the correlation between the knee scrape, the lady doing voodoo on it, and then you getting ass cancer.
Crazy. All right. He continues on. I got a part-time job at the YMCA, and funny enough, I started my career on the railroad. I was so invested with my career that I disconnected from everyone, including God, which I didn't have much of a relationship anyway. One day, while I'm tying down our train, I start hearing this extremely high-pitched squeal. Rail cars are known to make this noise while moving, but this was so much stronger and in my head. I remember thinking, I'm going to pass out if this shit doesn't stop. I eventually pass out and fall underneath a stopped train on the opposite track. Whoa. I came to after a couple minutes, and I could hear my engineer calling for help on the radio. I crawled to the locomotives and cut them off from our train. I was throwing up and I couldn't even stand up. I was so weak. It took me a couple hours to even be able to walk. My engineer told me it looked like that I had a seizure and I froze mid-stride. I was pulled out of service pending medical investigation. I went to heart doctors, neurologists, had blood and brain scans done, the whole 9 yards, and everything came back good. But the railroad said I couldn't go back until they found out what happened. I was getting frustrated. I wanted to get back to work, but no matter how many doctors I saw or tests I had done, nothing was working. Yeah.
It's really common for these things to like go away temporarily, and you think you did it right. You saged your house. You got the right crystals. You manifested to the universe or whatever. And then it seems like it goes away only to come back later on in a much more potent form.
Yeah. This is brutal for this guy. All right. So one night while I was off, I was about to go to sleep, and I heard a voice tell me to forgive and be forgiven before I can go back. But I was prideful, and I thought I was beyond forgiveness, so I procrastinated and drug it out a few more weeks. During that time, I had a dream that I needed to go to this church with a robin egg blue roof. So I woke up, got dressed, and went to this church that I've never seen or heard of before. But I just knew where it was, and I was able to find it on Google Maps because of the blue roof. The first sermon I hear was on forgiveness and how we're never unworthy of forgiveness. I went the next Sunday and spoke to the pastor. I told him what I was going through, and I knew that I couldn't go back to work until I made things right. So I got my stuff sorted out that same week. I got a call from work saying they didn't need all those tests and that I can come back. So I went back to work, but made sure to put God first and not be a douche towards my family. Later that year, I met my future wife, and I ended up helping her get out of her parents' house. Her mom claimed to be a witch and used all sorts of drugs, including I'm fairly certain she was possessed. Yeah, I know. Not good. You need to be on the lookout for, if you have kids, possible spiritual attachments. That's
I love this though, man, because it's like talk about like I always say that after I started looking at the world through like the Christian worldview, that it's just like vindication after vindication after vindication. And every time we get like, thought she was a witch doing, I'm like, yeah, that all checks out. It's like everything that we do harkens back to a previous episode that we did. And of course, this one in particular is Dr. Jerry Marzinski saying that the most effective drug at inducing a state that is akin to schizophrenia and that it opens up a spiritual doorway and it does not close for a long time. It's probably the worst drug when it comes to giving these things access to you. So, yeah, this is doing. And then what happens? Some spirit starts telling her she's special and that she's a witch, right? Idiot.
Okay, man. All right, continue again. So yeah, she thinks that she was possessed. My wife later told me that she and her whole family had seen the Hat Man growing up and that he was always hanging around.
Mm-hmm.
She always had sleep paralysis demons, and she would move her bed around her room to get away from it. That's interesting logic. They would also see a small boy in their family of all girls. Her grandma, who was particularly fond of me, would speak to the different entities and tell my wife and her sisters not to interact with them and that it was dangerous. My wife also told me that she could sometimes see auras around people. Her mom was green, her sister's orange or yellow, and I was yellow. All right. So we spoke to somebody else that saw auras, right? Was it Donnie, Spellbreakers?
I don't know. I don't remember who it was, but that comes up a lot. And I'm not saying those people are wrong, right? What's that thing, synesthesia, where like you see numbers as colors and shit like that? That comes up a lot in the telepathy tapes. So obviously, I think there is like if people give off an energy frequency and color is literally just light, which is vibration, then all of that makes sense to me. But I don't know, man. I just think it's like when you are given some spiritual gift, which I do think that could be a spiritual gift, you've misconstrued that so immaculately as a human being, and then next thing you know, like you're Wiccan. And so I'm not saying that it's inherently wrong to see auras. Like you can't control what you see, right? It's the same thing as like if you are viciously clairvoyant and cannot stop hearing the voices of what you think are dead people, which I don't know, maybe they are. I'm not saying that you're wrong or that that's evil or anything like that. I just think that we can be given these spiritual gifts, and people often attribute them to the wrong thing. But I hear that a lot, this aura thing, and I kind of am forced to ask, like, so what? So what? You can see a color coming off of me. Like, what does that mean? How is that applicable? What can I do with that? What does it mean? I've had people tell me before that I have a color coming off me. I don't remember what it was. And I'm like, and what is that? Is that like, my favorite color? Is that should I be dressing in that color? What do I do? What do I do with that information? It's just so strange.
Nice. From that book, he came to set the captives free. Mm-hmm. They mentioned towards the end, there was a lot of prayers from the initial Satanist woman to relinquish her spiritual gifts. She felt like she had to do that.
That's fascinating.
She worked pretty hard to get them, and then she no longer wanted them, and she gave them back to God, and God took them away from her so that she could lead a more normal life. But I don't know how successful she was in actually getting rid of all of these gifts, because I think some of them you're just born with. Some of them you also need. But I don't know. The ability to astral project is probably one that you could do without, or the ones that you go and you seek to get, probably ones that you shouldn't have had. But I'm not really sure.
Well, whatever you have, you should definitely be asking God. Like if it's not of God, then take it away. But also, I can see that like right here we have Mike McKay who says, I've always looked at 6 as yellow, 7 is red, 8 is blue. I think 5 is purple or green, and it's like. I think there's probably a pretty benign version of it where like you can notice the correlation between color and numbers. I'm like, okay, that seems, it's like, if you get anything more than that, I'd be forced to ask, like, what is the nature of what you're getting beyond that? But to notice that there's a color, correlation between, colors and numbers or whatever, like, okay, that seems reasonable.
I get the same thing, but with music, and not as specific, not like a specific notes, but groups of notes. So key signatures, I have and it's not really seeing them. It's like I guess I could explain it because I know what the colors look like, but it's just more of like a feeling of that's green, this is orange, this would be red, this would be blue, and it's like an arrangement of these notes, which would come down to just numbers, I suppose, like frequencies or vibrations,
right?
So that's something that I should eventually do, like a whole deep dive on. The idea of synesthesia, relative, and perfect pitch is something that we need to look into, because that's like a big deal with this show. But all right, he continues. Last summer, I was working really hard on my relationship with God. I started hearing voices and seeing shadow people again. The worst example happened when we were on vacation in Dominican Republic. No. We were in Arizona, staying in a tent in our friend's backyard. That's not a great vacation. What are you doing, dude?
Maybe it's a yurt. See, like a yurt. They're cool. They're nice. Like
You were glamping?
Glamping.
All right.
I like glamping. I'm a big fan of it.
Of course, you would be. I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of donkeys braying, roosters crowing, and rats squeaking, almost screaming.
Damn.
And thought, yeah, and through all this, I heard what I can only describe as what I'd imagine tongues to sound like. It was rapid, deep whispering, and the only words I could make out was river. And there was a hint of sulfur like rotten eggs.
Ooh, there you go, baby. There you go. That sound is, that smell, that's exactly what my schizophrenic aunt describes when the devil appears to speak to her, because I guess they're homies and he pays her visits sometimes. And when he appears, he is preceded by his smell. That's how she knows he's there.
Yeah. Some people would say that it's indicative.
Indicative, motherfucker.
Indicative, yes.
Yeah, that smell is indicative of a visitation from a spiritual entity. Also, many people describe that smell in alien encounters. A lot of that. I think even I forgot her name. We meant to have her on a long time ago. We keep playing phone tag with her. But she is part of L.A. Marzulli's team, and she describes the pile of discarded gray bodies, like alien gray bodies that she saw on a ship once, as smelling like that. And also, you get the same similar smell from Bigfoot encounters.
Yeah. Man. All right. So because our friend's house was in the middle of a fancy neighborhood, and there were no farm animals allowed, but I could hear them on the other side of the wall. I was telling myself, whatever it is can't get in, that we were safe here because of our friend's faith. Eventually, it went away, but it took me a while to get back to sleep. After another time, we stopped at a store, and I ran in to get a few things, and I heard a voice say, "Go in the bathroom." It threw me off so much I audibly said, "What the?" And I spun around, but there's no one else near me.
They want you to, guys, remember that. They want you to.
That's it is crazy.
They want you in your friend's bathroom. Or in the store's bathroom. That's crazy.
That's even weirder. Yeah. A couple weeks after that, I was able to astral project, but I had to return to my body. What the hell? What do you mean you were able to? Just were you trying to?
Figured it out.
I don't know.
Interesting.
All right. Soon after that, I had a sleep paralysis episode where there were 12 faces and they slowly changed to featureless voids. It didn't scare me, I just couldn't wake up. I ended up screaming my wife's name and she was able to help me. At one point, I had a dream about this entity hanging around my teenage sister. She was showing her how to be entitled and sexually liberated, and how to dye her hair and put on horrendous amounts of makeup.
Yeah.
Oh, was it Azazel?
Oh my God. Or was it, could have been Kris Jenner.
Yeah.
Teaching you how to be sexually attracted to men and how to please them.
So it's like basically all the ways you don't want your daughter or wife to act. Yeah. That's the example this entity was setting.
I hate the implications of that too, where it's like now in the future, like if, or anytime anybody's ever had like a daughter who's 16 and rebellious and is being and it's like, now you got to go a step further and be like, is this having like some sort of demon whisper to her? Is that what's happening here? Which is, probably.
Yeah, dude. I think that there's a lot of that going on.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Man. All right. So he's kind of like privy to this stuff. He's seeing this and kind of floating above it. So
he's synced it.
Yeah, that's the example this entity was setting. It's important to note that in this dream, she lived in a tent outside surrounded by dog poop and an accompanying sulfur smell. The next part of the dream was of my naked sister accompanied by a tall, thin man. Looked like Hat Man, but had actually had a face and features. His name was Vanity. The other man was short and fat, and his name was Greed or Gluttony. They took her away into the void. The dream disturbed me so much that I told my dad, and he informed me that she had gone full libtard and dyed her hair and pierced her nose and all that stuff.
Oh my God, really? Damn, dude.
Damn.
What do you even do? Don't talk to your sister.
Yeah, it's
You can't. You definitely can't go to some blue-haired, piercing having libtard and be like, you need to lean into Jesus Christ because you're being inundated by entities. That simply would never work. Never work. They'd be like, oh, the patriarchy.
man. Yeah, that's I was just talking with my friend about that, who his sister was kind of like lost to the same thing.
Yeah.
And they come from a family where his father was a pastor of a church. So it's like just lost forever. That's a generation that you'll never get back.
Xerox says he's definitely heard the goat voice. Haven't we all heard the goat voice? It's always like anytime you got free time, my wife leaves with my son somewhere. It's like, no, leave me alone, dude. I got shit to do.
Go touch it. Go look at this stuff. All right. A couple weeks later, I have a similar dream, but this time with my other sister. Only this time the female entity is in the house. This time the female entity is in the house and she's trashing the place and tempting my sister to be a lesbian.
Wow.
When I woke up, I went to my other sister's place. I told her about the dream, and I tell her that I believe she's about to be spiritually attacked and to be on guard. Pretty sure she's still normal, thankfully.
You fat fucking wildebeest of a cat. Hold on a second.
Oh, this cat! Look at! I could see this cat's butthole
Oh my
right
God.
on screen.
Don't sit on my keyboard, you gargantuan.
Disgusting.
No, baby, just my baby. I love you, but you got to get out of here. Look at her.
All right, well, we're at the end of this anyway. We're at the end of this. So there's been a few instances where strange sounds or ringing, or there's been ringings that I'm able to stop with the Psalm, the 23rd Psalm, or the name of Jesus.
Nice.
It works on shadow people and the feelings of doom. There's a few more things I could add, but this is enough for starters. Keep up the good work. Thank you. And then he goes, P.S. I was taking Benadryl from 12 to 15 for my seasonal allergies.
Oh, what's up with that? What's up with the antihistamine and the Hat Man? What is that about? Why is that the key to seeing the Hat Man? That's strange.
It's just like a doorway. It's like a little doorway that is opened up because of this hallucinogenic or this type of drug. I'm sure it goes back to an herb or a root that they use to compound it.
You know what's funny? So remember when he was talking about this entity like screaming in his face? I don't know if it was this guy or the last one, screaming in his face, but he couldn't hear it. It was like an electric scream.
Yeah.
Well, that goes back to that one dream that I had where I was hanging out with like two dudes. They were working on a car. I was sitting outside the car and we're just talking. Like the passenger door is open, the driver's door is open. They're sitting in there and they're just doing stuff. And all of a sudden they look over and they see this like old hag. And everybody starts screaming and it's like everything's vibrating. Like it was like, you ever see the meme where it's caveman SpongeBob and everything's all twisty?
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like a meme that's like, for chaotic moments. It was like that, where like everything started getting blurry and crazy but there really was no sound. Everybody was screaming, but there was no sound. And this thing was screaming, but there was no sound. I was screaming. I don't really know if there was sound for me. But I remember getting really like, for whatever reason, it didn't want me to look at it. And that, like, I was kind of meant to, like, do this and scream, like, ah! And I was like, no. So instead, I'm like, ah! And I'm staring at this, and I'm still screaming. And I remember it doesn't like that. What I knew, this is interesting, too, because this is what she did to him. What I knew was if I broke eye contact with this thing, the next thing that was going to happen was I was going to open my eyes, and she was going to be in my face. That's what I knew in the dream. And that's why I didn't want to break eye contact. And I remember she started doing like a teeter-totter. Like, you ever see the toy wooden bird that drinks the water over and over again? It just does that, like a seesaw. She's doing that and she's cackling. And in hindsight, it was almost like she didn't look real. She looked like a wooden stage prop for a ride at Disney World or some shit. Like I was on It's a Small World and this is just part of the thing. And And she didn't like that she couldn't get me to look away. So she ran up in my face and then did the thing anyway, where she like popped up right in my face and was screaming. And then I proceeded to feed her uppercuts. I was like, ah! And just started chipping this up. And I remember that it felt like I was punching wood, which is like, it's almost like she wasn't real in any real way. And then I remembered that I could call on Jesus Christ, and then she just vanished. And so it's weird. They just have an MO, right? Like that, the screaming, the popping up in your face. Like it's like the same tactics that like Hollywood uses, right? And of course, what they've figured out is how do we jump scare our viewers? So they study the psychology of like horror films and how people react to fear. And that's how you make like a good scary moment in a movie. There's obviously an understanding of fear and how it applies to our psychology. It's like this thing knew that too. So it was going through all these really cliche things on how to scare me. And it was working, but it didn't it didn't work all the way. I just find that fascinating how it's like, remember Monsters, Inc.? They had like, how do you scare the children? Well, you got to go to you got to practice your roar kind of a deal. You know what I mean? Like they all have their thing that they would, and it's not about like the kid. It's about the fear. It's about probably producing that energy so that they can eat. So I just find it interesting because they do run through almost like gimmicks or gags, like how they scare you. It's fascinating in that way. We're at the hour and a half mark. Do you want to do one more?
Nah, actually, let me wrap it. I hear my kids freaking bouncing around in here. These guys
interrupted like 3 times.
Yeah, it's been a very strange episode.
Yes. That was a good one, though. It's really interesting stories. Thank you to Ben. Guys, if you want us to read your paranormal submitted testimony, then you got to submit it, baby. And you got to send it over to NephilimDSquad at gmail.com. That's NephilimDSquad at gmail.com. And we will read your fucked up stories. I'm not advocating for anybody to do, but if you are a viewer who does, you probably have some stories that I'd be really interested in hearing. Otherwise,
do not do that. This is our rejoinder.
But if you're already doing, I'd like to hear about your experiences. Is all I'm saying, and I won't judge you, not harshly, at least. Anything else we got to tell these people before we get out of here? Patreon.com/NephilimDSquad. You guys are already here, but this will come out to another audience at some point.
Yeah, I just got a message from somebody that said that they're in Toronto, Canada, and they've been unsubscribed twice from our Patreon. I don't know why. Yeah. Now they're saying they're not allowed to
unsubscribe from our Patreon. Let us know.
Yeah, they're saying they're not allowed to follow us back or won't let them rejoin again. I don't know why. So if this is the case for you, just let us know, and we'll I don't know. I got to look into it. I have no idea what to do.
Eventually, we're gonna have to create like a members website. I don't know how we're going to do that. We'll figure that out in the future, but it could be a violation of Patreon's terms and services. Maybe you said something out of pocket in the comments and Patreon, removed you. I don't know. We don't block anybody who's trying to pay us. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on there.
Although I have asked one person who was paying us to stop paying us.
That's right.
Get out of here. Yeah. They probably still listen to the show, but just don't be that person. We're doing our best. We've been grinding and uploading and editing and downloading and uploading so that way you guys could have video on the Patreon and just stuff on the Patreon. And we're doing 2 other shows. We're coordinating a live event, balancing just a life, a family life. I know you guys could hear my kids screaming outside. I don't know what the hell they're doing in here. So yeah, somebody came on there and was acting like a tough guy with me for $5 a month, and I told him to kick rocks because I didn't get into this to be a slave to somebody else. I do this because I enjoy it, and we do it to the best of our abilities because we want to give you guys a good product. So I think his issue was our so on the Patreon, we'll just explain it really quickly. You can go here. I'll share the page here because this is something that we never really do, but you can go to the Patreon. And if you click this, which I guess this is the Spotify button. If you click that one, no, this one here, the 3 things, that's a Spotify members feed. If you click that, it'll bring you to a special Spotify page that you can listen to if you are a member. My bandwidth is limited, so I upload the audio right away. And then David will follow up usually a couple hours or a day after, and he'll upload the video to that audio so you can watch on Spotify. If you can't do that, that's okay, because there's a library section here where you can press collections, and there are live show links. So you can actually go there and watch the StreamYard live show link if you want to watch the video, if you can't wait until it's up on Spotify. And I told the guy, I said, hey, listen, it'll be up soon. We're doing things right now. You can click on this live show link. And he said, so you expect me to click 2 buttons? And I said, you know what? Get the out of here.
Yeah.
Get out of here. I don't want your money. It's crazy. I'm trying to do whatever I can to, get this thing going. I understand this is a product that we're giving you guys, but we give you guys a lot of products. So work with me and, we'll help you out. Otherwise, tell
we're
that
in the
guy.
middle of that. We've been talking about it a lot lately. We're experiencing these growing pains right now because we have reached sort of a critical mass in this operation where we need to grow now. It's now beyond 2 guys. The workload is far exceeding the capabilities of just 2 dudes. And you got to keep in mind, I'm doing Timeline Cleanse. He's doing Tower Gang. We're both doing NephilimDSquad, NDS Chronicles, and Dangerous Retards. That's 5 shows. It's a lot. We're producing a lot of content a week. And so, yeah, just between uploads and download times, it's crazy. Never mind all of the extracurricular shit that we need to do to flesh out the current apparatus that we have built around this show. So just bear with us, guys. We're in the middle right now of discussing onboarding, onboarding a professional production team, which of course is going to cost money. So that's a lot of fun. And yeah, opening up a studio and throwing a live event in a couple of months. We got our hands full. Have some patience with us, guys. We're just retards. But thank you guys for supporting us, and thank you for keeping up with us after all this time. I think it's time to wrap it up, no?
That's it. We'll see you guys later. Obey, submit, comply. Goodbye.
The greatest hypnotist on planet Earth is a oblong box in the corner of the room. It is constantly telling us what to believe is real. If you can persuade people that what they see with their eyes is what there is to see, you got them. Because they'll laugh in the face of an explanation that portrays the bigger picture of what's happening.